Mr. Nescott? Thank you, Your Honor. Government calls Thomas Gilliam. All right. Would you please stand and be sworn in, Mr. Gilliam? State your name for the record and spell it. Thomas Gilliam. Gilliam. Mr. Gilliam, I'll ask you to make sure you stay pretty close to that microphone. Don't drift on back in the chair. How old are you, Mr. Gilliam? 33. Where were you raised? Hazelwood, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. How far did you go in school? I got kicked out in 11th grade, and I took my GED. What high school did you go through the 11th grade in? John E. Brashear High School, Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh? Yes, sir. Mr. Gilliam, since the late 80s, have you held any full-time legitimate employment? No, sir. What's been your employment over that period of time? Drugs. What drugs have you dealt? Marijuana, cocaine, and heroin. Mr. Gilliam, have you been a user of cocaine or crack or heroin? No, sir. Back in 1991 or 1992, were you arrested in Pennsylvania? Yes, sir, for distribution of crack cocaine. Were you taken? Was your case charged in state court or in federal court? State. How much cocaine? Was that crack you said? Yes, sir. How much crack was involved in that case? It was a sale of a gram of crack to an undercover policeman. What would a gram of crack cost back then? About $120, $130. Again, you are still leaning back. You're going to have to sit up and pull yourself up to the microphone. What kind of sentence did you get for that sale of gram or so of crack cocaine? 5 years probation. Mr. Gilliam, are you presently incarcerated in a federal prison? Yes, sir. You are serving a sentence out of what district? West Virginia. When were you charged in that West Virginia case? October 2001. Were you arrested or did you turn yourself in? What happened? I turned myself in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. What was the charge in West Virginia exactly? Distribution of crack cocaine. What quantity was involved down there? Small amount of crack cocaine. What sentence did you get? 70 months, 5 years, 10 months. When did you start serving that sentence? June of 2002. Have you been in prison since that time? Yes, sir. Mr. Gilliam, about 6 months ago, did you appear in front of Judge Hardiman and enter a plea of guilty to another charge? Yes, sir. What charge was that? That was a charge of distribution of 5 kilos of cocaine with a stipulation of 15 to 50. Was the charge a distribution or a conspiracy charge? It was a conspiracy charge. That involved the conspiracy to distribute 5 kilograms or more of cocaine, is that correct? Yes, sir. Did you have a signed plea agreement in this case? Yes, sir. Do you remember when you signed that agreement approximately? I think it was the beginning of August of 2003 in West Virginia. You were in the federal prison down in Morgantown then? Yes, sir. As part of that preliminary agreement, did you understand whether or not what you told the agents after that point could be used against you? Yes, sir. Could it be used against you? Yes, sir. Did you understand whether additional charges would be brought against you beyond that conspiracy you pled to? Yes, sir. Would additional charges be brought? No, sir, as long as I signed a plea and testify. Under the terms of the plea agreement, is there something in the plea agreement that talks about if you withhold information or perjure yourself or are not truthful or complete? Do you recall that part of the plea agreement? Yes, sir. What happens if you do any of those things? My deal will be ripped up. Can you be charged then with all the amounts you talked about? Yes, sir. Mr. Gilliam, what sentence are you presently looking at whenever you're sentenced by Judge Hardiman? Anywhere from 155 months to 188 on top of the 70 months I have right now. All right. Now, did you appear and testify in front of a grand jury here in this courthouse? Yes, sir. Did that relate to your testimony here today? Yes, sir. Do you recall about when you testified before the grand jury here? I think it was in July 2003. Right around the time you signed the plea letter? Yes, sir. Mr. Gilliam, will you tell the jury, please, what you understand your obligations to be under the plea agreement? To be truthful. What else? Not lie. Just tell the part of the conspiracy that I contributed to. And under your agreement, is there something you hope or expect will happen? I will hope a Rule 35 to be entered. Would you explain what that would mean to you? What that is? Downward departure of my sentence. What is your understanding of who ultimately controls what sentence you get? U.S. Attorney. All right. Would there have to be a motion of some sort filed for you? Yes, a motion, Rule 35. Who would decide whether or not that motion is granted? Judge Hardiman. Who would decide what sentence you would ultimately get in this case? Judge Hardiman. Mr. Gilliam, when did you first start selling drugs? In the late 80s. Late 80s. Where were you? Were you still in school at that point? Yes, sir. At Brashear? Yes, sir. What quantities did you start selling? What drugs and what quantities? The first drug I was selling was marijuana. Small things of marijuana, like joints, dollar joints. How much were joints selling for? $1 a piece. Did you move up from that? Yes. What quantities of marijuana were you selling then? Quarter ounces, half ounces of marijuana. Did you move into another drug other than marijuana while you were still in high school? Yes. Powder cocaine. What quantities of powder cocaine were you selling? $20 bags, quarter of a gram. Were you caught selling drugs in high school? Yes. Is that what got you thrown out? Yes. Did you go to juvenile court? Yes, sir. Were you ordered to serve a certain punishment at that time in juvenile court? House arrest. Were you told to live at a particular location? Yes. I was told to stay out of Hazelwood, where I grew up at. I went to live with my Aunt Jonah Gilliam in West Mifflin, Pennsylvania. Aunt Jonah Gilliam? Yes, sir. Did you in fact move in with your Aunt Jonah? Yes, sir. Where was she living? Montview Heights in West Mifflin. All right. In relation to Kennywood Park, how far was your Aunt Jonah's place from Kennywood Park? A few miles away, maybe 2-3 miles. How long did you live over there with your aunt? Maybe almost a year, probably. And from there, where did you move? Back to Hazelwood. When you moved back to Hazelwood, can you give us an approximate year for this when you moved back to Hazelwood? Probably 89, 90, somewhere around there. When you came back to Hazelwood, where did you move? Off of Hazelwood Avenue, 4521 Sylvan Avenue. Where is Sylvan Avenue in relation to 2nd Avenue in Hazelwood? It's maybe 6 streets up, 6 blocks up from Hazelwood Avenue. Do you know Terrance Cole? Yes, sir. How long have you known him? Maybe since I was maybe 12 years old, 10, 12 years old, round there. What is your age in comparison to Terrance Cole? Who is older or younger? He is older, maybe 39 now, 38 to 39. Do you recall where it was you first met Terrance Cole? We hung out. It was the YMCA in Hazelwood, Youth Center. Is Terrance Cole here in court? Yes, sir. Would you point him out, please? He's right over there with the yellow shirt with the tie on. If the record may reflect the identification of the defendant, Your Honor. So noted. Mr. Gilliam, when you went to Montview Heights to live with your Aunt Jonah, were you involved in selling drugs at that point? Yes, sir. Do you recall what you were selling at that point and who you were getting it from when you first started over there? At first, it was powder cocaine. Do you recall who you were getting it from? I was getting it from a man named Danny uptown and Michael Robinson. Did you become aware of who they were working for? Yes, sir. Who was that? Terrance Cole.